What you are admiring is a real live 1973 Suzuki, let me fit through here, 100 Honcho. It's small, 100 cc's. A tricky thing about these is not only did Suzuki name them, this was the Honcho, the 400 was the Apache, which I like motorcycles that feel that they have enough personality to actually be given names. This has a 2-range transmission, 5 gears in the low range, 5 gears in the high range. It's kind of Rokon-like. Listen. That is the engagement for trail speed and street speed. Dual range transmission. It was rated at 10.8 horsepower, which compared to a 1974 XL125, I think is 12.5 horsepower. And a Penton, which had a Sachs engine, their Berkshire 100 had 16 horsepower. So basically by any standards, this is kind of a weenie motorcycle, a mere 10 horsepower. One of my favorite all-time bikes was a Honda XL 1974 125, which had borderline horsepower, but I still had so much fun exploring logging roads in the Rockies in Colorado. Wasn't the greatest hill climber. Sometimes you'd have to get off and run alongside of it, but it was a blast to ride. Now, this one happens to be in relatively decent condition. You look at it and you're like, oh, look at all that shiny chrome. Well, believe me, about a week ago, before I cleaned it up, the chrome with Brillo pad and WD-40, you would have thought that like there wasn't a good shiny part on this bike. It was just, the rust was bleeding. It was just a gooey, nasty, dusty, dirty, grimy mess. After cleaning it up, I'm thinking, this is a pretty nice looking bike. But again, for a dirt bike, 10 horsepower is not much. I'm tipping the scales at this side of 200 pounds, so, you know, I don't know. It's nice from a historical standpoint because it is intact. I'm going to add some new stuff. Original, what is that? Equipment manufacturer, OEM stuff. The seat cover is not part of that because there's an outfit in Florida that redoes seat covers, so I'm going to replace this torn thing. However, I found OEM. I sound so mechanical. A tailpipe gasket for this. I still need to locate a clamp to hold the thing on, but it had kind of a little stinger on the side. In fact, there was an amazing, cool bike called a Suzuki Stinger, but this will have a 100% intact tailpipe. I just noticed when I was cleaning out the oil injection tank that I need a new cap on it. Fork boots. I need to get a new ignition because there's no key for this thing. And you can buy a mated ignition and steering lock for these doohickeys. They're still available, so I'll do that. Oil injection. Now some people might say, why do I need to rehab the oil injector? Why can't you just burn premix? Well, the oil injection system, which is keyed to the throttle, the more you're turning this doohickey right here, this gizmoid, which splits, the cable splits into two. One goes to the slide in the carburetor, the other one goes to the oil injector to give it more oil. So that's kind of a neat deal. The oil injector splits, one goes into the carburetor, spraying a fine mist of oiliness. The other goes to the main bearing. So if you're going to just burn premix in this and not have that oil injector functioning well, you're going to burn out your main bearing. So I'm crossing my fingers that I do not need to disassemble it and clean it out and remove gunk like you would like a carburetor jet. I'm hoping that it works right the first time. And there are ways to do that. There are ways to do that. Okay. The gear oil was perfectly clean. In fact, I think I was the last person to change this, even though it wasn't my bike, about 30 years ago. So the fluids really look good. The remaining two-stroke oil in the reservoir was nice. The gear oil was nice. So I think I stand a good chance of this thing, you know, not having to have much engine work done to it or taking stuff apart to clean it. Everything is good. I'm going to use the miraculous substance known as seafoam though. I'm going to have a little 2-stroke oil in here and mix down quite a bit with seafoam, enough oil that it's not going to burn out the main bearings if I'm just using it gingerly just to clean stuff out. And I will have a little bit of premix in the tank. You know, if it's spewing out some exhaust and fouls the plug, whatever. I want to get the thing pumping and circulating, and I think seafoam is a way to do it. It was tempting of me. I'm looking at this, and I could actually do this without destroying it. Replacing the fenders, I keep saying feathers, with Preston Petty fenders. You know, back in the day, the cool kids had plastic Preston Petty. It's hard to say, Preston Petty. Peter Piper picked a peck of Preston Petty fenders. The cool kids had Preston Petty, and I could replace those without destroying anything. The stock equipment would be still here. But at 10 horsepower, I mean, how much of an investment do I want to put into something that's not going to be able to really power me down the trails well? This is more of a puttering, so, you know, I'm probably not going to go that route. I'm thinking about getting this thing running, getting all the stock parts on it, making it look really nice. There's a little tiny ding in the tank. This is the only flaw in this thing, really. And trading it or selling it so I could get like an old 2-cycle dirt bike that actually has some cojones. Don't need a 400cc monster or a 500 or whatever. You know, a good, strong, old MX, that's an old term. I'm an old man. 125 would be perfectly good. I don't mind picking around stuff on a 125. I don't need to be a power monster about it. But that is up in the air. Luckily, not a lot of stuff to do, just going to eBay. Probably about $150 into it with the tailpipe and these things and that other stuff and the things beyond that. I need to put a spark plug boot on here. There's no spark plug doohickey. Don't want to get too technical, but that's all right. I am impressed by, you know, really how good the paint is. The frame doesn't need to be repainted. This thing cleaned up really nice, and that's, you know, a real visual plus on this bike. And that is that. That is the Suzuki 100 Honcho. It's got to be good because it's a Honcho. Let me just back this thing up. Extra careful. I've got no oil whatsoever on this cement pad. So you could admire the Honda stickers. Oh, look at that. Isn't that tricky? Now that one is a keeper. I don't know how I can hop it up. Gonna take it to Gaylord Honda dealership because there's an old Yoda of old Honda motorcycles out there, and I'm gonna see what I can't do to get a few extra horsepower out of that thing. That is definitely a keeper. This, I don't know, it's a pretty bike, it's historical, but it doesn't really do much for me. You know, whatever. It's kind of a fun little side project here. Kind of doinking around. That is it. Have a good day. Go out and vote. This is voting day. I did. The wife is gone for 5 days visiting family south of here. And it's a cold, wet, rainy day, but I still rode Thumper to the voting booth, which is it's a trick. When you're on a bike without a front fender in the rain, you have to kind of ride to the side so that stream goes right by your left shoulder. Yup. Yup, yup.